Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to discuss a very important topic, Donald Trump's 25% import tariff on India and the associated penalties, effective August 1, 2025. On this first slide, you'll see the main focus of our discussion. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore what this tariff means, its potential impacts, and what to expect moving forward. So let's dive in and get started. Let's start by looking at the background and context of recent developments. From February 12 to 15, 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the United States. During this visit, trade talks were a major focus, with the goal of achieving what's called Mission 500, which aims for bilateral trade between India and the U.S. to reach $500 billion by the year 2030. That's quite an ambitious target. Now, when we look at trade policies, there's a noticeable difference in tariffs between the two countries. India's average applied tariffs are around 12%, whereas the U.S. tariffs are much lower, at about 2.2%. This disparity has led to some tension in the past. For instance, during the Trump administration, India was labeled a tariff king and called a big abuser of trade rules, highlighting concerns over these high tariffs. Despite these differences, negotiations between India and the U.S. are still ongoing, and they're expected to continue through mid-2025. These talks are crucial because they will shape the future of trade relations and help determine how both countries can work together to meet their economic goals. Connecting all these points, it's clear that these negotiations are a vital part of the broader theme of strengthening economic ties and addressing trade challenges between the two nations. On July 30, 2025, President Trump made a significant announcement on Truth Social. He declared that India would face a 25% tariff on goods entering the United States. This is a substantial increase in the cost of Indian products for American consumers and businesses. Additionally, there will be an unspecified penalty linked to India's purchase of Russian military equipment and energy. While the details of this penalty aren't fully outlined, it signals a serious stance on India's defense and energy dealings with Russia. The key point here is that the tariff is set to take effect very soon, on August 1, 2025, marking the start of these new trade measures. This announcement ties into our broader discussion about trade tensions and the evolving strategies in U.S. foreign policy. It exemplifies how economic tools like tariffs are being used to influence international relationships and policy decisions. Let's take a moment to review the key figures for 2024. As you can see, the total U.S. India trade is approximately $129.2 billion. Of that, India exports about $87.4 billion worth of goods to the U.S., highlighting the strong trade relationship from India's side. On the other hand, U.S. exports to India are around $41.8 billion, which shows a significant gap between the two. This leads to a U.S. trade deficit in goods of roughly $45.7 billion. These numbers are essential because they illustrate the scale of economic exchange between the two countries, and they also help us understand the ongoing trade balance dynamics. This summary ties into the overall theme of our presentation, emphasizing the importance of trade flows and the opportunities for growth and collaboration between the U.S. and India. So, why are we discussing penalties in this context? Well, one of the key reasons is India's ongoing imports from Russia. Despite the international tensions caused by the Ukraine war, India continues to buy arms and discounted crude oil from Russia. This ongoing trade raises questions about the impact of these actions on global efforts to pressure Russia economically. Now, some critics, including former U.S. President Donald Trump, have pointed out that India is actually Russia's largest buyer of energy. This isn't just about oil, it includes defense purchases too. Trump argued that these transactions, especially the defense support, help Moscow's war efforts in Ukraine. So, the core issue here is that India's continued imports can be seen as a form of support for Russia, which complicates the broader international strategy of sanctions and diplomatic pressure. It highlights the challenge of balancing diplomatic relations with economic and strategic interests. In the context of our overall discussion, Understanding these dynamics helps us see why certain countries face penalties or diplomatic pressure, and how those measures are aimed at shaping global responses to conflicts like the one in Ukraine. Now, let's take a closer look at the key sectors affected by these disruptions. Industries such as electronics, generics pharmaceuticals, gems and jewelry, auto components, textiles and machinery have all been severely impacted. These sectors are critical to our economy, and disruptions here can have far-reaching consequences. According to CEDI, the potential loss in these sectors could be as high as $7 billion annually, which is quite significant. In fact, about 87% of our total export value of $66 billion is affected in these key sectors. This highlights just how deeply intertwined these industries are with our overall economic health. Understanding these impacts helps us grasp the importance of addressing these challenges effectively to safeguard our growth and stability. Let's take a moment to summarize the key points from this slide. First, the tariff. As of August 1, 2025, there will be a 25% tariff on Indian goods. This is a significant measure aimed at addressing trade concerns. Moving on to penalties, there is an unspecified additional duty that could be applied in response to India's purchases of Russian energy and defense products. This indicates a layered approach to trade policy, targeting specific sectors and practices. Speaking of sectors, the impact will be felt across several industries, including pharmaceuticals, electronics, gems, auto parts, and textiles. These are critical areas of trade that could see notable changes. On the legal front, it's important to note that these tariffs are being implemented under current trade statutes, after previous emergency-based tariffs were struck down by courts. Finally, looking ahead, the outlook involves ongoing negotiations and the possibility that India might diversify its trade partners to reduce reliance on specific markets or measures. Overall, these actions reflect a strategic effort to manage trade relationships while navigating complex geopolitical considerations.